Expectations were sky high at Ferrari heading into the 2025 season. After ending last year on a strong note, pushing McLaren for the constructors' title right up to the finale in Abu Dhabi, they secured second place, just 14 points adrift. Considering McLaren had a championship-worthy car from Miami onward, Ferrari's late-season push was impressive. But 2025 brought a new kind of pressure. Unlike 2024, when teams like McLaren could afford to develop deep into the calendar, this season came with a looming deadline: the 2026 regulation overhaul. Every team knows that development for next year will need to start early, meaning the first few races of 2025 were going to define the title fight. For anyone aiming for the Drivers' Championship, be it Russell in the Mercedes, Verstappen in the Red Bull, or either McLaren or Ferrari driver, there was no margin for error. McLaren hit the ground running, seizing control of the championship almost immediately. Ferrari, meanwhile, stumbled out of the blocks, and at precisely the worst time. To put it plainly, their opening phase of the season was a nightmare. In Australia, Leclerc came home 8th, while Hamilton could only manage 10th, all thanks to a baffling strategy call. Then came China, where both cars were disqualified due to technical infringements. Apart from a lone sprint victory in Shanghai and 3 podiums for Leclerc, their highlights reel is depressingly short. They currently sit 3rd in the constructors' standings, just 16 points behind Mercedes, but that gap hides a deeper reality. Ferrari's performance is being flattered by the shortcomings of their rivals. Mercedes are still integrating a teenage rookie in Antonelli, while Red Bull continue to suffer from their long-standing issue of one competitive driver and one underperformer. In contrast, Ferrari boast 2 seasoned race winners in Hamilton and Leclerc. On paper, that should give them an edge, yet they're barely hanging on. Even with such a strong lineup, Ferrari find themselves trailing McLaren and only marginally ahead of 2 teams that are fighting internal inconsistencies. The perception of Ferrari's strength is being skewed by their rivals' weaknesses, not by their own merit. And while it's likely they'll snag a win or 2 later this year, maybe even lock in second place in the standings, the truth is hard to ignore. 2025 is already a write-off. In the past 10 years, McLaren have transformed from grid backmarkers to a dominant force. Meanwhile, despite all their funding, history, and momentum from 2024, Ferrari are still struggling to build a reliable, competitive car right out of the gate. To underline this shift in priorities, Ferrari recently confirmed that they've halted wind tunnel testing of the SF25. Essentially, the current car's ceiling is now set, and that means any improvement from here will be marginal at best. And as is often the case with Ferrari, poor results come with heightened pressure from back home. The Italian media wasted no time in pointing fingers. Ahead of the Canadian Grand Prix, the heat turned toward team principal Fred Vasseur, with some reports suggesting his role could be in jeopardy. Vasseur is under contract until the end of 2025, and while Ferrari might not technically fire him, they could simply opt not to renew his deal. What's even more surprising is the speculation about potential replacements. Names like Christian Horner, whose personality seems wildly mismatched with Ferrari's current drivers, and Antonello Coletta, the mastermind behind Ferrari's Le Mans triumph, have surfaced as frontrunners. This cycle of blame is nothing new at Maranello. Whether these stories stem from genuine boardroom dissatisfaction or media invention, the result is always the same. Someone gets scapegoated. Since 2014, Ferrari have cycled through a string of team bosses: Domenicali, Mattiacci, Arrivabene, Binotto, and now Vasseur. But even with that long history of turnover, the current scrutiny Vasseur faces isn't completely unwarranted. As the man in charge, the accountability ultimately lies with him. Ferrari's technical structure isn't getting the best out of its talent. When you look at what McLaren have accomplished under Andrea Stella, the contrast is striking. Stella didn't overhaul the team with flashy signings. Most of the major players were already on board. What he did was reorganize, restructure, and re-energize the people already in place. That internal transformation, that optimization of existing talent, is exactly the kind of leadership Ferrari now needs from Fred Vasseur. And while the spotlight often turns to the drivers, history shows that criticism isn't new, nor always fair. I've been guilty of it too. I was vocal in my criticism of Sebastian Vettel during his final years at Ferrari, particularly in 2018 and 2019, when I felt he was throwing away a title-capable car. I was also skeptical of Leclerc at one point, especially during his crash-prone 2022 and 2023 seasons. But since then, Leclerc has elevated his game. Right now, I rank him as the second best driver on the grid, above Piastri, Norris, Russell, and even Hamilton. Yet as always, when results dip, rumours start swirling, like recent speculation about Leclerc possibly moving to Mercedes. But to me, the drivers aren't the problem at Ferrari. They've made mistakes, sure, but much of that comes from the sheer pressure this team creates from within, often through its own operational failings.
And then there's Hamilton. His arrival brought a tidal wave of anticipation, and understandably so. But while it's fair to say his opening phase at Ferrari has been underwhelming, some of the criticism has gone too far. Yes, this is statistically the worst start of his career, with 0 podiums after 10 races. But in the championship standings, he's right behind Leclerc, 6th to Charles's 5th. Their qualifying stats also paint a picture of near parity. Leclerc averages P6 on the grid, Hamilton P7.5. In fact, the qualifying gap between them, just over a tenth and a half, is virtually identical to Norris versus Piastri, and better than what Sainz managed against Albon. That comparison is important. Sainz was excellent at Ferrari, often matching Leclerc. In 2024, Charles scored 54.6% of Ferrari's points, with Sainz contributing 44.5%. In 2025, that split is 56.8% to 43.2% in Leclerc's favour. Hamilton is essentially mirroring Sainz's output, which tells us something clear. The issue isn't the driver lineup. If anything, Hamilton has stepped into the same shoes Sainz left behind and is delivering a comparable performance. The deeper concern lies elsewhere, and it's not unique to Ferrari. Across the grid, experienced drivers who switched teams this season, Hamilton, Sainz, Tsunoda, are all struggling to match teammates who are more integrated into their setups. These 2025 cars are complex, highly tailored machines. Adjusting takes time. Sainz, for example, is having a tougher time matching Albon than Hamilton is keeping pace with Leclerc. But because Williams have taken a clear step forward, Sainz's struggles haven't been magnified the way Hamilton's have, because Ferrari have gone backwards. The optics are different, even though the story is similar. As Ferrari's performance dips, the cracks become more visible. Operational missteps begin to surface. Their pit stops have actually been decent, competitive with the best in the field, but their race strategy and in-race communication have faltered. Think of Monaco, when Hamilton wasn't warned that Verstappen was pushing on a fast lap in Q1, an oversight that led to a penalty. Moments like these are piling up. It's easy to blow Ferrari's situation out of proportion, and no, they're not as dysfunctional as they were under Binotto in 2022, but the regression is undeniable. Vasseur initially brought calm and structure, but now even those early gains are starting to erode. And the ever-watchful Italian press, they're circling like sharks, feeding on the scent of instability. At this point, Ferrari's 2025 campaign is a lost cause, regardless of how many wins they might scrape together in the second half of the year.
But that loyalty has to turn into results. Ferrari cannot afford to carry this inertia into the 2026 regulations. They must show measurable improvement before the year is out. Because as things stand, the story is starting to repeat itself again. High expectations, early disappointment, mounting pressure, scapegoats named, and then the same hopeful optimism starts all over again.